of education in terms of, again, the period that we've experienced in terms of ups and downs. One place where I would argue there was some progress was referred to by Professor Britton in his remarks when he read from the holding of Sheff versus O'Neill, a case that those of us from Connecticut are very familiar with. He was the lead counsel for the plaintiff in that case. It took almost 8 years to get from filing the lawsuit to the final judgment in 1996, which ruled, again, that segregation under the state constitution, in fact, was a violation of state law. And that triggered a whole other process in terms of trying to find the resources to implement a system of breaking down those barriers. Again, I just think that Professor Britton's leadership and advocacy, again, persisting to go back to the courts to force the state legislature to come up with the resources for a segregation plan has resulted in some positive outcomes. Mr. Chairman, I have an article from the American Prospect, Desegregated Differently, which describes, again, the Sheff versus O'Neill case, which I'd like to ask to be admitted to the record.
Without objection.
And it states very clearly in the first paragraph that nearly half of the public school students in the city of Hartford now attend desegregated schools. Included in that sort of plan is a Sheff School, as it's called, in East Hartford, Connecticut, the IB Academy, which my daughter Elizabeth attended and graduated in 2013. Again, it was rated by the U.S. News and World Report as the 5th best high school in the state of Connecticut. Again, totally diverse student body where students from Hartford, Connecticut are transported every day along with kids from other suburban areas. And again, it's shown that, in fact, diversity and quality are just not incompatible, but in fact work together to produce great outcomes for students. So again, Professor Britton, based on your experience and dealing with again the resource issue in the wake of the court's decision, I mean, to some degree, that's really the mission that we should really be focused on in terms of trying to get the benefits that you described in your testimony. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And the Strength and Diversity Act, which my friend Congresswoman Fudge would open the door to expanding those resources, as well as the magnet school grants, which the chancellor referred to, which have really kind of not been out there for communities. That would help, don't you think, based on your experience in terms of breaking down resistance to really enhancing these types of programs?
Absolutely, I agree with both the chancellor and my colleague, Dr. Linda Darling-Hammond.
Because what we're seeing is that, again, you hit that about 50% mark in terms of kids attending desegregated schools, but it has somewhat stalled because of budget issues in Connecticut and also some resistance in terms of local communities funding issues like transportation. If the federal government were to step in and really provide a new infusion of resources, I mean, that would really turbocharge and jumpstart these models that we know are actually working. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
And Chancellor, I don't know if you want to just sort of chime in, but that would get to the heart of some of the other criticisms that we've heard here. I mean, I don't want to speak ill of the New York City school system, but frankly, it is highly segregated. And if we had programs which, again, were able to diversify student bodies, I think, frankly, you would see improvement in all across the board. And I was wondering if you could comment on that.
Yes, sir. So it would be a game changer. And again, resources. As public school systems, we don't have the ability to charge more for our product. We don't sell products. We educate souls. So we are dependent upon the funding that we get to be good public stewards of that funding. So additional resources gives us the opportunity to create programs, to distribute those programs through an equity lens in communities that have historically been underfunded. It also allows us to provide mechanisms for parents in the traditional public schools to access those programs and students to access those programs. As you mentioned, the culinary arts program, we know that students have lots of varying interests. So as we work to modernize what that curriculum looks like and give students a portfolio of options, the funding becomes central to that.
Well, thank you. And again, that really should be our focus in terms of next steps. Again, I just want to publicly thank Professor Britton for his amazing work in the state of Connecticut. My family got a firsthand view of the benefits, and it was just, you're a giant in the history of our state.
Thank you, sir. You're much too kind.
Gentleman yields back. Dr. Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank all of the panel for being here. It's an extremely important topic, and I may be the only person sitting up here that graduated from high school in the segregated school system in the rural South. And the first African-American student I went to school with was college, and then medical school.